The mailbox slammed shut with finality. Marcus Chen stood in his driveway holding the letter from the Homeowners Association like it was written in a foreign language. 22 years. 22 years he'd lived in this neighborhood, paid his mortgage, maintained his property, and never once caused a problem. Now, a single paragraph was threatening to upend everything. His wife Lisa came out onto the porch, coffee mug in hand. She took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked, though she could already see the HOA letterhead trembling slightly in his grip. "They're saying—" Marcus paused, reading it again as if the words might change. "They're saying the pool violates some amendment from 1987, a covenant that states all recreational aquatic facilities over 300 square feet must be designated as community amenities." Lisa's coffee mug froze halfway to her lips. "That's insane. We paid for that pool." "I know, out of our pocket, remember? The pool guy quoted us $35K and we negotiated it down to 28? "I know, Lisa." She descended the porch steps and snatched the letter from his hands, her eyes scanning frantically. "This can't be legal, can it?" Marcus had already been asking himself the same question for the past hour, ever since he'd received the letter. The answer made his stomach churn. "I don't know yet." 3 hours later, Marcus sat across from Patricia Holloway, the HOA president, in the community center's dim office. Patricia was exactly the kind of person who thrived in positions of small authority, aggressive, narrow-eyed, and absolutely convinced of her own righteousness. She'd been president for 8 years and had made it her personal mission to enforce compliance. "The covenant is clear," Patricia said, sliding a document across the desk. Marcus recognized it immediately as the master deed he'd received at closing, but had never bothered to read in detail. Who did? Any recreational structure exceeding 300 square feet becomes community property. But that's not what it says here. Marcus pointed to a subsection. "It says structures built after 1987. I built my pool in 2009. There's a grandfather clause." Patricia's jaw tightened. That clause was intended for structures that existed in 1987, not new construction. That's not what the language says. That's what the intent was. Marcus felt his temperature rising. Intention doesn't override the actual words on the page. I paid $28,000 for that pool. I maintain it. I'm the only one who uses it. Well, not anymore. Patricia folded her hands on the desk. The board voted yesterday. Effective immediately, your pool is designated a community amenity. Residents of the neighborhood are now allowed to use it during designated hours. We're setting up a schedule. You can't be serious. Dead serious. In fact, we're thinking of charging a small fee to cover maintenance. Maybe $15 per visit. Marcus stood up. His chair scraped backward so violently it nearly fell. "And if I object?" Patricia smiled, a thin, satisfied smile. "Then you can appeal to the board. Which is mostly me, by the way. We meet next month." He walked out without another word. The next morning, Karen Mitchell appeared at Marcus's gate at 9 a.m. sharp, along with 3 other neighbors Marcus barely recognized. Karen had lived 2 houses down for 6 years. She was the type of neighbor who showed up at community events in branded tracksuits, who complained about people's lawn care to the HOA, who looked at everyone else's property like it was a personal slight against her. Marcus had never had a direct conflict with her, but he'd heard the stories from everyone else on the street. "Patricia said we could come by this morning," Karen announced, her hand already on the gate latch. "Great day for a swim." Marcus moved in front of her. "No," Karen's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "No, this is still my property. The pool is my property. You're not using it?" "Actually," Karen pulled out her phone and showed him a screenshot of an email from Patricia. "The HOA voted. We have access during daylight hours. It's community property now." "It's not community property. It's my private property that your president is illegally claiming authority over. I'm appealing the decision." "When?" "Next month," Karen smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "Well, until then, we have rights. And honestly, I think it's kind of selfish that you've been hoarding something like this. How many neighborhood kids have you let use your pool? That's not my responsibility." "It is now," she said, and brushed past him toward the gate. Marcus grabbed the gate and locked it. Karen rattled it, her face darkening with indignation. "This is discrimination," she shouted through the bars. "This is trespassing," Marcus said quietly. "Leave my property." She left, but not before shooting him a look of pure venom. The other neighbors drifted away awkwardly, but Karen turned back twice, her jaw working like she had 1,000 more things to say. That evening, Marcus sat by the pool with a beer. He wasn't usually a drinker during the week, but tonight felt necessary. The water glowed under the LED lights he'd installed last summer. He remembered the day they'd finished the pool. Lisa had jumped in fully clothed, and they'd laughed like idiots for an hour. His phone buzzed. A text from Patricia. "Several neighbors have complained about access being denied. You're creating a hostile community environment. I suggest you cooperate," Marcus typed a response, then deleted it. Then typed again, "I'm hiring a lawyer," but he didn't send that either. Instead, he stared at the pool, at the water that cost him $28,000. At the deck he'd spent 6 weekends building himself, at the lights he'd installed so carefully. He thought about Karen's self-righteous indignation, about Patricia's unchecked power, about a covenant from 1987 that nobody had bothered to read until someone decided it could be. Weaponized, an idea began forming in his mind. Terrible, brilliant, completely unhinged in its justice. He started laughing. It began as a quiet chuckle and built into genuine laughter, the kind that made his shoulders shake. Lisa came out onto the patio confused. "What?" she asked. "Did your lawyer call?" "No," Marcus said, still grinning like a madman. "But I just realized something. If they want to make this community property, then maybe it really should be community property. All the way." Lisa's expression shifted from confusion to dawning comprehension to alarm. "Marcus." "No." "Yes," he said, already pulling up his phone. "If they want to democratize my pool, let's democratize it. Properly. With fees. That's insane?" "Probably, but it's legal. The pool is community property now. And community property requires maintenance, which requires revenue." By midnight, Marcus had designed a professional sign. Community pool. Admission, $25 per person. Daily passes, $40. Season passes, $300. ATM on premises. Karen Mitchell receives a 50% discount. Marcus hammered the last bolt into the signpost at 6:47 a.m. The laminated sign was perfect. Professional, laminated, waterproof. It hung at eye level on the gate, impossible to miss. Community pool, $25 admission per person. Below that, in smaller letters, daily passes available. Season passes, $300. Maintenance fees required for community property. Reserve your time slot in advance. He'd stayed up until 2 a.m. designing it, and Lisa had watched the entire process in silence. She hadn't tried to stop him again. She'd simply gone to bed around midnight, leaving him to his revenge fantasy turned real. By 7:30 a.m., Marcus had already received 3 text messages, 2 from neighbors he didn't recognize, 1 from Patricia. Patricia's read, "Remove that sign immediately. This is harassment." He didn't respond. At 8:15 a.m., Karen Mitchell appeared at the gate. She was in her athletic wear, compression leggings, a designer tank top, her blonde hair pulled into a tight ponytail. She'd obviously planned to use the pool this morning. Then she saw the sign. Marcus watched from his patio as her face cycled through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, indignation, fury, and finally something that looked almost like respect before reverting to pure rage. She pulled out her phone and called Patricia. "Patricia, have you seen what he's done?" Karen's voice carried across the yard, sharp and shrill. "He's put up a sign charging admission to the community pool." "He can't do that!" Marcus couldn't hear Patricia's response, but he could see Karen's face getting redder. "I don't care if it's technically community property. We're the community. He can't charge us." Karen paused, listening. "No, I'm not paying $25 to use a pool that's supposed to be mine. This is extortion." Marcus smiled into his coffee. Karen hung up and approached the gate. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the sign, and Marcus could practically see the calculations happening behind her eyes. "Marcus!" she called out. Open this gate! He stayed on the patio watching. Marcus! This is ridiculous. You can't charge us for community property. Still nothing. I'm calling the police! Karen shrieked. This is illegal! She stayed at the gate for another 5 minutes, alternating between threats and insults, before finally storming off. Marcus waited until she was gone, then went inside to shower. By 10 a.m., he'd received a notice from the HOA via email, copied to Patricia, the board, and apparently half the neighborhood. An emergency meeting has been called for today at 4 p.m. regarding the unauthorized signage and attempted extortion of community members. All residents are welcome to attend. Attempted extortion. The phrase made Marcus laugh out loud. Lisa found him in the home office, still laughing. You're making a mistake, she said quietly. Maybe, Marcus agreed. But it's my mistake to make. No, it's our mistake. And I'm not sure I'm ready to make it. She sat down in the chair across from his desk, and Marcus could see genuine worry in her eyes. This is escalating. You know that, right? Karen doesn't lose gracefully. Neither do I. That's what I'm afraid of. The emergency meeting was held in the community center's main hall. Marcus had expected maybe 15 people. Instead, he found the room packed with nearly 40 residents. Patricia stood at the front with a cordless microphone, looking like she'd been born for this moment of power. Karen sat in the front row. Naturally, thank you all for coming on short notice, Patricia began, her voice carrying that same self-righteous tone Marcus had heard in her office. We have a serious situation. A resident is attempting to exploit a technical ruling to charge his neighbors for access to community property. It's not exploitation, Marcus called out from the back of the room. It's enforcement of community property rights. Patricia's eyes narrowed. The pool is community property. That doesn't make it a business. Why not? Marcus stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. The HOA charges dues for community maintenance. I'm simply following your model. The pool is now community property. I'm a member of the community. Therefore, I'm charging for access and allocating the revenue toward maintenance. Karen stood up. This is absurd. You're being deliberately unreasonable. I'm being deliberately accurate, Marcus countered. You wanted the pool to be community property. Community property has operational costs. I'm covering those costs. By gouging your neighbors, Karen's voice pitched higher, by charging a fair market rate for pool access. Do you know what a day pass costs at the community pool downtown? $35. I'm charging $25. I'm actually being generous. Patricia tapped the microphone. This is beside the point. The pool was never intended to generate revenue. The pool was never intended to be community property until yesterday, Marcus fired back. You changed the rules. I'm simply adapting to the new reality you created. The board will be filing a cease and desist order, Patricia announced. On what grounds? Marcus asked. Community property is exactly what you said it is. I'm a community member. I'm maintaining it. I'm requesting compensation for maintenance and operation. That's not illegal. A man in the third row raised his hand. Actually, he has a point. If it's community property, don't we all have equal rights to make decisions about it? The board makes those decisions, Patricia snapped. Why? The man pressed. If it's community property, shouldn't we vote on it? A ripple of agreement moved through the crowd. Patricia's face darkened visibly. There will be a vote, she said coldly. We'll determine community property usage at the next full board meeting. Which is when? Marcus asked. Next month. Perfect, Marcus said. Until then, the admission fee stands. Karen stood up again, her face flushed with rage. You think you're so clever? You think you've won something? You haven't. You've just made this personal. Marcus met her eyes steadily. You made it personal the moment you showed up at my gate demanding access to something you didn't own. I'm just following the logic of your own position. No, Karen said quietly, and there was something in her voice that made the hair on Marcus's neck stand up. You're making an enemy. And you should know. I don't lose. She grabbed her purse and walked out. The meeting dissolved into arguments and recriminations. Patricia tried to maintain order, but the damage was done. At least half the people in the room were now discussing whether Marcus had a point. By the time everyone filed out, the energy had shifted. Marcus wasn't the villain anymore. He was the clever guy who'd called the HOA's bluff. Lisa was waiting on the porch when he got home. How did it go? She asked. Better than expected, Marcus said. The room turned against Patricia and Karen. They're talking about voting. Lisa didn't look relieved. If anything, she looked more worried. What? Marcus asked. Karen left the meeting before you did, right? Yeah, why? Because she went home and started making phone calls. Lisa held up her phone. She'd received a message in a neighborhood Facebook group he wasn't even aware existed. Karen's post, timestamped 20 minutes ago, read, "Some of us are tired of having our community held hostage by selfish residents who think they're above the rules. Time to show people what happens when you don't cooperate." Who's with me? Below it were already 3 comments. All agreed. She's organizing something, Lisa said quietly. Marcus read the thread again, his stomach tightening slightly. Let her organize, he said, but his confidence sounded hollow even to his own ears. Marcus, you don't know what you're dealing with. Karen Mitchell is the type of person who will spend months, years even, making your life miserable just to prove a point. So am I. No, Lisa said firmly. You're not. And that's the difference between you. She has nothing else going on. You have a career, a family, a life. She has the HOA and grudges. That night, Marcus received a notification that his garbage cans had been overturned in the street. The next morning, someone had left a 1-star review on his company's Google page, claiming he'd done shoddy work on their kitchen renovation 5 years ago. By noon, there were 3 more reviews, all fake, all vicious. By evening, someone had posted on the neighborhood Facebook group that Marcus's property taxes were somehow illegal due to a zoning technicality. By the next morning, that post had been shared 47 times, and someone had called the county assessor's office. The small war had begun, and Marcus, sitting by his pool in the fading light, realized he'd underestimated his opponent. Karen Mitchell wasn't going to stop at the gate. She was going to make him regret every single decision he'd made. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Certified mail, return receipt requested. Marcus signed for it with growing dread. The envelope bore the letterhead of Brennan and Associates, a law firm he'd never heard of. Inside was a formal notice. Karen Mitchell was filing a complaint with the state's attorney general's office, claiming Marcus was engaged in fraud, harassment, and unlawful exploitation of community members. The letter detailed his supposed crimes in meticulous detail, everything twisted just enough to sound plausible while remaining completely false. It accused him of deliberately creating a hostile environment, of extorting money from neighbors, of discriminating against specific residents by name. Karen had somehow gotten the $50 discount detail and was using it as evidence of intentional targeting. The last paragraph informed him that Karen was requesting an investigation and that she was prepared to pursue all available legal remedies, including civil litigation regardless of personal cost. Marcus read it 3 times. How much is this going to cost us? Lisa asked from the kitchen doorway. She'd been watching his face as he read, I don't know yet. I need to call a lawyer. We don't have money for a legal battle, Marcus. You know we don't. He did know. Their savings were modest. A real legal fight could drain everything they'd built over 20 years. She's bluffing, he said. But he wasn't sure he believed it. Is she? Lisa's voice was quiet but sharp. Because it looks to me like she's just getting started. That afternoon, Marcus called his business attorney, a woman named Jennifer Chen who'd handled his contracting, licensing, and business disputes over the years. He laid out the entire situation, the HOA, the pool, the sign, the letter. Jennifer listened without interrupting. When he finished, she exhaled slowly. Okay, she said. Here's the thing. Technically, what you're doing is clever as hell. You're right. The pool is community property now, and you're well within your rights to charge for maintenance and upkeep. But clever doesn't always matter in court. Why not? Because Karen's not actually trying to win on the merits. She's trying to make this expensive and painful enough that you cave. It's harassment disguised as litigation. And frankly, it works. So what do I do? You could fight it. Cost you maybe 10 to 15 grand in legal fees just to get through discovery. Or, you back down. Remove the sign. Let the pool become community property. Make peace. Marcus felt something in his chest twist. And let her win. Let her think she won, Jennifer corrected. But yeah, essentially. He didn't make a decision that day. Instead, he did something worse. He posted on the neighborhood Facebook group. The post was measured, seemingly reasonable. I realize my actions with the pool have created tension in our community. I'm open to dialogue about finding a solution that works for everyone. Perhaps we could discuss reasonable maintenance fees or a formal agreement that benefits all residents. It was a peace offering, a flag of truce. Karen responded within 15 minutes. There's nothing to discuss with someone engaging in extortion and targeted harassment. This belongs in court, not in dialogue. Some of us have standards. 3 other neighbors responded with agreement. But 5 others criticized Karen, suggesting she was overreacting and that Marcus had a point about maintenance costs. The thread exploded into a neighborhood civil war. By evening, someone had created a petition. Remove the admission fee and restore community pool access. It had 18 signatures, with Karen's name prominently at the top with the comment, "Everyone sign this." By morning, there were 34 signatures. Marcus created a counter-petition. Support fair maintenance compensation for community property. He posted it anonymously, using a fake email address and a generic account name. Within 6 hours, it had 22 signatures. The HOA called an emergency town hall for Thursday night. This time, the community center was absolutely packed. The parking lot overflowed. People stood against the back walls. Patricia had clearly expected this. She'd arranged a larger setup with a projector screen and a formal podium. This was no longer a board meeting. This was a spectacle. Patricia opened by announcing that the HOA was suspending all community property access to the pool pending legal review, effective immediately. No residents were allowed to use it. No one. The gates would be locked. The sign would be removed. The room exploded in protest. "Why should he have exclusive use?" someone shouted. "Because none of us want to pay," another voice countered. "I used that pool twice," a woman near the front said. "I'd be happy to pay maintenance fees." Karen stood up before Patricia could regain control. She was dressed impeccably in tailored pants and a blouse, her hair and makeup perfect. She looked like a warrior ready for battle. "Let me be clear," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "This isn't about the pool. This is about one man deciding he's above community rules. Marcus Chen thinks he can manipulate us all by playing word games and acting clever. Well, I for one am tired of it." She pulled out a stack of papers. "I've obtained copies of Marcus's business filings. Turns out he's been running his company with his wife as an employee but not paying her as such on the books. Possible tax evasion. I've also discovered that his contractor's license was nearly revoked 15 years ago due to a complaint about shoddy work that was never properly resolved. And I've gathered testimony from 3 people who claim he's done substandard renovations." Marcus felt his world tilt. "I'm not just filing a complaint with the Attorney General," Karen continued, her voice almost cheerful now. "I'm filing a formal complaint with the State Contractors Board. I'm requesting an audit of your business taxes. And I'm in contact with 3 former clients who are willing to provide depositions about your work quality." She sat down with a satisfied smile. The room had gone silent. Patricia regained control and adjourned the meeting. But the damage was catastrophic. Marcus's business, his income, his livelihood, was now under scrutiny. The allegations Karen had made were partly exaggerated, but enough had kernels of truth that an investigation would be messy, expensive, and deeply damaging to his reputation. Lisa was trembling when they got to the car. Not from emotion, from rage. "She's destroying us," Lisa said quietly. "She's actually destroying us." "I know. For a pool, Marcus. A pool." "She's willing to ruin your career over a pool." He had no response. That night, Marcus sat alone by the pool. He hadn't removed the sign yet. He wasn't going to give Karen the satisfaction, but he knew it was over. The fight was over. He'd lost, not because of the merits, not because he was wrong, but because Karen had revealed the brutal truth. She had nothing to lose and everything to gain from escalating. She had time. She had obsession. She had absolutely no limits. He called Jennifer Chen at 11 p.m. "I'm taking her offer," he said. "I'm backing down." "Wise choice," Jennifer said. "I'll draft a statement for you. We'll make it look amicable." After further consideration, Marcus has decided the community's concerns are valid and wishes to facilitate community enjoyment of the pool. Something like that. Puts you in a positive light. It won't matter. No, Jennifer agreed. Probably not, but it might keep the contractor's board investigation from being too brutal. The next morning, Marcus removed the sign. He did it himself, methodically unbolting it from the post, carefully packing it away. He didn't take a photo. He didn't post an announcement. He simply did it. By noon, Karen had posted on Facebook, "Justice served." Some people need to learn that you can't take advantage of a community. Glad Marcus has seen reason. By evening, she'd added, "I forwarded documentation to the state contractors board. Time for a real investigation into this man's business practices." Marcus received a call from his largest client that evening, a development company that used him for all their custom finish work. His contact was apologetic but firm. They were going to pause future projects pending the outcome of any investigations. That was industry code for, "We're dropping you until this blows over. And if it doesn't blow over, we're dropping you permanently." 3 other clients called with similar messages over the next 2 days. Lisa found Marcus sitting in the dark by the pool on Friday night. She didn't say anything at first. She just sat next to him, her hand finding his. "I'm sorry," he said. "I was so sure I was right." "You were right," Lisa said quietly. "That was the problem. Being right doesn't matter when you're playing against someone with nothing to lose." "What do I do now?" Lisa was quiet for a long time. "I don't know. But I know Karen Mitchell just proved that she can destroy anyone who stands up to her, and I know that she's never going to stop. Backing down didn't satisfy her. It just confirmed that her method works." Marcus realized the terrible truth. Karen had tasted victory, and victory was addictive. She wasn't going to stop with the pool. She was going to keep coming. He pulled out his phone and did something he'd been avoiding. He called a different kind of lawyer, one who specialized in defamation and harassment. "I need to know," he said to the attorney who picked up. "If someone is systematically destroying your reputation and livelihood through false allegations, what are my legal options?" The attorney listened as Marcus explained everything. "That depends," the lawyer said finally, "on whether you're willing to fight back in ways that Karen won't expect, and whether you're willing to accept the consequences of what comes next." "What comes next?" Marcus asked. "War," the lawyer said simply. Marcus's new lawyer, David Whitmore, was not the kind of attorney who worked from a polished downtown office. He worked from a converted warehouse space in an industrial district, surrounded by filing cabinets and investigators' reports. He was sharp, precise, and absolutely ruthless. "Karen Mitchell filed false reports with the state contractors board," David said, spreading documents across the table. "That's defamation per se. She made specific, demonstrably false allegations that directly damaged your business. We have your client records showing the work she complained about was either completed satisfactorily or never existed. We have written testimonials from satisfied clients contradicting her claims." "So I can sue her?" Marcus asked. "Yes, and we will. But that's not where we start." David pulled out a thicker file. "We start by investigating Karen Mitchell herself. People like her don't usually operate in a vacuum. There's usually a pattern." Over the next week, David's investigators dug into Karen's background. What they found was illuminating. Karen had lived in 6 different neighborhoods over 15 years. In each one, she'd been involved in disputes with neighbors or HOA boards. In 2 cases, she'd been named as a defendant in cease and desist letters. In one neighborhood, she'd been asked to leave the HOA board after multiple complaints about her conduct. In another, she'd been involved in a dispute with a neighbor over a fence that had escalated into legal action, a case she'd lost. More importantly, they found that Karen had filed complaints with various regulatory boards against at least 3 different contractors in the past 5 years. None of those complaints had resulted in investigations. Most had been dismissed as lacking sufficient evidence. She was a serial litigant, a professional complainer. Someone who used the legal system as a weapon, knowing that most people would back down rather than fight. "She's done this before," David said. And she's never faced real pushback because people didn't have the resources or willingness to fight back. Until you. What do we do with this information? Marcus asked. We use it. David pulled out another set of documents. I've prepared a defamation suit against Karen Mitchell for $250,000. We're going to file it on Monday. Then we're going to make sure she knows exactly what evidence we have about her pattern of behavior. Will we win? Marcus asked. Probably. She made specific false allegations that damaged your reputation and business. That's textbook defamation. But winning isn't really the point. The point is making her understand that this time she picked the wrong person. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. It wasn't relief. It was something colder. Something that tasted like vengeance. The lawsuit was filed on Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, Karen had received the paperwork. By Tuesday morning, she'd called an emergency HOA meeting. This time, Patricia looked nervous. The other board members looked frightened. Karen looked furious. He's suing me for $250,000, Karen announced, her voice shaking with outrage. For what? For telling the truth? For protecting our community? Were your allegations true? Patricia asked carefully. She was clearly already consulting with her own lawyer. Of course they were true. Because, Patricia continued, if they weren't, then this lawsuit has real merit. The HOA can't defend you if you made false statements. Karen's face went white. The board is going to have to distance itself from this, Patricia said, though Marcus could see the satisfaction in her eyes. She'd clearly been looking for a way out of Karen's control. Any personal disputes between residents are their own affairs. Patricia, you can't. We're adjourned, Patricia said, and banged the gavel. The HOA board, it turned out, had no interest in becoming collateral damage. By Wednesday, Karen had hired a lawyer of her own, a less prestigious firm than the one she'd used before. The lawyer sent a response claiming that all of Karen's statements were opinion and therefore protected speech. It was a weak defense, and everyone knew it. David responded with a 47-page motion detailing every false statement, every misrepresentation, every factually incorrect allegation. He attached documentation, client records, testimonials, photographs of completed work, permit documentation that systematically demolished every claim Karen had made. He also included a section on Karen's pattern of behavior in previous neighborhoods. Not as evidence of malice necessarily, but as context showing a systematic pattern of making complaints that were either unfounded or exaggerated. The message was clear. We know who you are, and we're going to prove it in court. Karen's lawyer responded by requesting a settlement conference. David was clear with Marcus. She wants to negotiate. That means she's scared. That means she knows we're going to win. The settlement conference was held in a neutral attorney's office 2 weeks later. Karen sat across from Marcus for the first time since the pool dispute had begun. She looked smaller than he remembered, older, angry. Her lawyer presented a settlement offer. Karen would retract her complaints with the state contractors board, issue a written apology, and pay Marcus $35,000 to drop the lawsuit. David looked at Marcus. The decision was his. No, Marcus said. Karen's lawyer blinked. I'm sorry? No settlement. We're going to trial. She's going to explain to a judge exactly why she made false statements to multiple regulatory agencies. She's going to explain her pattern of behavior in other neighborhoods. And she's going to lose. Karen's face flushed. You're making a mistake. I made mistakes, Marcus interrupted. A lot of them. But continuing to fight for my reputation isn't one of them. He stood up and walked out. David followed him into the hallway. That was bold. Was it stupid? Possibly. But it was also probably effective. She just realized that you're not going to back down, and that you have the resources and documentation to bury her in court. 2 days later, Karen's lawyer called David with a new offer, full retraction, $60,000 payment, and a formal written apology that Karen would sign and allow David to use for the state contractors board investigation. Still interested? David asked Marcus. Marcus considered it. The investigation into his business would likely be dropped if Karen retracted her complaints. His reputation could begin to recover. His clients might come back, but more importantly, Karen would lose. Not partially. Not ambiguously, completely, Tell her $100,000, Marcus said. That's the amount for a full retraction, a detailed written apology, and her agreement not to make any public statements about me or my business, ever. If she violates that agreement, she immediately pays an additional $50,000 per violation, and she has to issue a statement to the neighborhood Facebook group acknowledging that her previous complaints were unfounded. That's aggressive, David said. Good. The negotiations took another week. Karen wanted to reject the terms. Her lawyer begged her to accept them. In the end, Karen caved. She signed everything. She wrote the apology. She issued the Facebook post. I want to acknowledge that I made serious errors in my previous statements about Marcus Chen's business practices. After legal review, I recognize that these complaints were not supported by evidence and that I acted hastily in making them public. I regret any harm I've caused and am withdrawing all previous complaints with the State Contractors Board. This matter is now resolved. It was the most grudging apology Marcus had ever read. But it was an apology. The post garnered 127 comments. At least 40 of them were criticizing Karen, with people saying things like, "About time," "She owes him more than money," and "Karen strikes again." Karen deleted her Facebook account 2 days later. Marcus's client started calling back. His largest client, the development company, asked if they could resume their work together. They did, cautiously at first. The investigation with the State Contractors Board was dropped without findings. By all objective measures, Marcus had won completely. But sitting by the pool one evening a week after Karen's public apology, Marcus didn't feel victorious. He felt hollow. Lisa found him there as the sun was setting, painting the water in shades of orange and pink. "It's over," she said, sitting beside him. "Yeah, you got what you wanted. I know. So why do you look like you've lost everything?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "Because I realized something. Karen didn't destroy me. I destroyed her. And doing that, it didn't make me feel better. It just made me feel like her." Lisa didn't respond immediately. "The pool," Marcus continued, "is still community property. I never got that back. But I got money and I got an apology and I got everyone in the neighborhood to turn against her. I destroyed a woman's reputation." "She destroyed you first," Lisa said quietly. "Did she? Or did I destroy myself by deciding to fight back the same way she was fighting?" Lisa took his hand. "Marcus, you fought for your reputation, your business, our livelihood. You were right to do that. Was I?" He looked at the pool, the source of all this chaos. Or was I just playing her game at a higher level? A car pulled up to the front of the house. They could see someone getting out. It took Marcus a moment to recognize the figure, Patricia, the HOA president. She approached cautiously, almost hesitantly. When she reached them, she looked uncomfortable. "I wanted to apologize," Patricia said without preamble, "for how I handled the pool situation. I used the covenant as a power grab and I allowed Karen to escalate unnecessarily. It was wrong." Marcus stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because watching what happened between you and